Hello, I'm Gord Neal. I'm the CEO of Tincorp. Um, my previous in my previous life, I was the VP of Corporate Development for Mag Silver and the President of New Pacific Metals. But now I'm the CEO of Tincorp. I will be making some forward-looking statements during this presentation, so you need to be aware of that. So the question is, why Bolivia? Why are we working in Bolivia? It's a remote jurisdiction, but it was the largest producer of tin between 1950 and 1980. Tincorp's team has past success in Bolivia. We've made two major discoveries for New Pacific Metals, where I was president, as I mentioned, at Silver Sand and Carangas. Tin is an essential green metal for a sustainable economy, and its highlighted use right now. Its most important and highest growth use is in solar energy. Tin production and global reserves are declining, and a new supply is limited. And in the last 40 years, there have only been four new tin deposits discovered, and we are hoping to be the fifth in the last 40 years. Sorry, in the last 40 years. So what is tin used for? It's primarily used for solder. Every circuit board in every electronic device has a circuit board in it, and it's made primarily of tin. Those little dots, the little silver dots you see on these printed circuit boards is made of solder, which is tin. So 47% of tin goes into solder. It goes into chemicals and PVC stabilization, solar panels, as I said, is the largest growth use of tin right now. Electric vehicles and batteries, copper alloys, and tin plates, your ubiquitous tin can. That's the primary uses for tin. This is a study. This graph shows a study that was done by Rio Tinto and MIT. And what they found was tin would be the most impacted metal from new technology, for the use of new technology. Autonomous and electric vehicles, advanced robotics, 5G, Internet of Things, renewable energy. Again, solar panels come up. All of these things require tin because of the circuit boards. And so the growth of tin will be impacted by new technology. So the price of tin more than doubled in 2021 or in 2022. It went from 17,000 dollars per ton US to $50,000 per ton US. And that was really speculative on COVID and people staying at home and using monitors and buying new refrigerators. Again, any kind of electronic that had circuit boards in it. This growth was really driven speculatively by the COVID virus. And then it dropped off in 2023 as we got vaccinated and got back into work and moved out of our homes. Now, you can see that's quite a drop in 2023. But we've actually had another spike again because the Wa province in Myanmar has decided they're going to shut down all mining. And since a third of China's tin comes from the Wa district in Myanmar, there was a spike again that took it over $30,000 a ton in 2023. It's now settled down around $27,000, $28,000 a ton. Tin production and consumption. China is both the largest producer and consumer of tin. You can see that Bolivia is the sixth largest producer of tin. And you can see on the pie chart there that Europe, Southeast Asia, USA make up the other users and consumers, main consumers of tin. There is a tin shortage, as I mentioned before, in terms of the amount of tin that we have in production. You can see that China's tin production and global tin reserves are declining significantly from 2007 to 2022. There's been a significant decline in tin production and tin grades, tin reserves over that period of time. So our first project that I'm going to talk about for Tincorp is the Porvenir project. Now you'll see in this map that there are two projects, a Porvenir project to the west in blue and the SF Tin project to red in the east with our camp in the middle. Porvenir is a tin zinc, silver zinc project in the Aurora department. We can get there by 48 kilometers paved road, and it's 15 kilometers of gravel road. It's 15 kilometers south of Huanuni, and Huanuni is the largest silver mine in Bolivia. Um, we manage again both of these projects from one camp. And between 2007 and 2011, Dawa Metals and Mining, the Japanese mining company, drilled 25,000 meters or 88 diamond drill holes at Porvenir. We have a 3,000 meter drill program that's in progress right now, and I think we actually might move that to 4,000 as we see what we're getting here. These photographs are important because you can see the slot work there. That was tin taken out probably, we figure, about 50 years ago. Very high grade tin. And what this tells us, these is artisanal workings. And when I worked at New Pacific, we used the same kind of vectoring of looking at artisanal workings to give us a directional finder on the strike of our mineralization on these properties. So very important to look at old workings and old dumps to see what kind of grades we're looking at and what kind of direction we're striking out into. The project is 11.25 square kilometers in size. Sphalerite, pyrrhotite, and cassiterite, primarily cassiterite mineralization, is hosted at near vertical north-northwest trending structures and cerulean sedimentary rocks. You can see in those the blue pin-like lines on the map, those were the 88 holes that were drilled by Dawa. And Dawa identified more than 19 tin zinc veins. The highlight assays that they got from their work was 941 grams per ton silver, 6% lead, 28% zinc, 10% tin, which is extremely high tin, 500 grams per ton indium. So, historic sampling by Dawa, we really can't figure out why they sampled the way they did, but they selectively sampled the core. They were actually mining for zinc. So when they saw sphalerite in the core, they would take a selected piece of core out and send it to the lab. Typically what we would do, most exploration companies would do, is you take the whole core, split it in half, and send it to the lab. They selectively sampled only specific areas. So it really didn't tell us. We knew that there's tin there, and we know that some of their grades showed us some like 10% tin, but they only selectively sampled this. So of the 25,000 meters that they drilled, we were able to recover 1,300 meters of the core, 37 holes, and we relogged and resampled those boxes you see in the bottom photograph there. But what also happened was we think there was core everywhere that was unsampled. So Rifeng, who is the CEO of Silvercorp and our largest shareholder, was on the property. He picked up that piece of core that's in the top photograph on the right there with the hammer handle, and we sent it in for sampling, and we got a 0.5% tin and 0.34% zinc. And 0.5% tin is good high-grade tin. So we were again shocked that they didn't sample any of this. But again, they were looking for zinc, and we are looking for tin. So PV41 was the best hole that Dawa drilled, and from 265 meters to 332 meters, 67 meters of core was 100% recovered. In the same interval, Dawa only sampled 29 samples covering 22 meters discontinuously, but their average grade was 1.6% tin, 3.2 zinc, and 14 grams per ton silver. We relogged the hole with using the resampling of the entire hole that we were able to get, and we got an interval rather than 22 meters, we got 60 meters of 0.66, 1.4% zinc, 6.3 grams per ton silver, including 21 meters of 1.6% tin, 2.6% zinc, and 9.6 grams per ton silver. What this told us was that the mineralized zone was much wider than we had thought from the sampling that Dawa did, because they only selectively sampled. And these first two holes in green that you see on the right-hand side, the right-hand illustration, are the first two holes that we drilled at Porvenir. And those are finished, and they're in the assay lab right now. Again, one of their best holes was PV26 from 133 to 172 meters. 39 meters of the core was 100% recovered. In the same interval, Dow only sampled 7 samples covering 6 meters discontinuously, and their average was 0.7% tin, again, a high grade tin number, 1.5% zinc, and 27 grams per ton silver. We relogged this hole, and we got an interval of 26 meters of 0.4% tin, 0.77 zinc, and 11 grams per ton silver, including 8 meters of 1% zinc and 0.9%, 1% tin, 0.9% zinc, and 16 grams per ton silver. Again, extending the mineralized zone. So again, it just tells us that this zone is much wider than we had gotten from the numbers, the original numbers from Dawa. This is a selected assay results from the relogging program that we did. And what we did on this was add on a silver equivalent column on the right-hand side. And this is meant to give everyone, tin is I'll call it a new or not really well-known metal. So we wanted to make sure that everyone understood what the equivalency on the silver equivalency side. So as you can see on PV26, in red, 1.02% tin with 0.9% zinc and 16 grams per ton silver is equal to about almost 400 grams per ton silver equivalent. On PV41, the best hole, 60 meters of 0.66, 1.4 zinc, 6 grams per ton silver is about 281 grams per ton silver equivalent. Again, these are high grade numbers. The 21 meters in PV41, 21 meters of 1.36% tin plus 2.6 zinc and 9.6 grams per ton silver is 580 grams per ton silver equivalent. So again, we're just trying to match up or give people a benchmark, an equivalency between silver and tin. This is obviously just 3 photographs of our current drill program going on. So I want to move now to the SF Tin project, which is to the east of Porvenir. It's at an elevation of 4,200 meters. It's only 2 square kilometers. It's not very big. But what's important about this is surrounding our property is a lot of volcanics. Drilling through the volcanics, which can be anywhere from 10 meters to 100 meters, would be quite costly. This window, this 2 square kilometer window, is the only patch of exposed bedrock below the volcanics in a 20 kilometer radius. So even though we know the owners of the land around us, I'm friendly with them, and we could strike a deal. We're not sure that we want to make it bigger than this because the volcanics surround this. This is a window through the volcanics right to bedrock, and it's the only window in the area. So we'd have to test to see if it made sense for us to get more ground here. 72 kilometers by paved road from Oruro, 15 kilometers northwest of Yayagua. And Yayagua is the second largest tin mine in Bolivia. And again, it's only, I'd say, 40 kilometers from Huanuni, which is the largest tin mine in Bolivia. So we're in tin country for sure. Excuse me. It's situated in that belt, as I just told you. Rio Tinto drilled this in 1996. They put 7 holes in it. 5 of them are on our property, and a drill program will start at SF Tin in August. The tin mineralization extends over 1,000 meters and can be seen through historical surface trenching and drilling. 5 holes, as I mentioned before, was by Rio Tinto. We twinned the first 2 holes to ensure that we were picking up the right property. And this is the mineralization in this project is closer to surface than the Porvenir project. So here is a picture of the open pit that was worked by the artisanals and the previous owners. You can see by zone 2 there, those grayish dumps are tin dumps or old dumps of tin material. And we sampled 5 zones in this pit and came up with 9 meters of 0.33 tin, 7 grams silver, 19 meters of 0.4, 22 grams silver, 12 meters of point 0.4 almost, and 11 grams silver, 12 meters of 0.62, 7 grams silver, and 8 meters of 0.7% tin, and 9 grams per ton silver. Again, all this is all at surface, and these are the kinds of projects that Refang, again, CEO of Silvercorp and our largest shareholder, it likes these kinds of potential projects. They mirror the silver sand project that we found in Machacamarca, where the mineralization basically starts at the surface, and now Machacamarca and silver sand looks to be the next largest silver mine that will go into production in Bolivia in the last 30 years. So this was the confirmation drilling that we did. You can see ESF001, which is the the hole that was drilled by Rio Tinto, was 200 meters of 0.45 tin, 1 to 0.2 zinc, and 14 grams per ton silver, including 68 meters of 0.49 tin, 1.69 zinc, and 9 grams silver. So we twinned that hole, and we got 200 meters of 0.4 tin, 1.2 zinc, 12 grams per ton silver, including 68 of 0.68, 0.62 tin, 1.69 zinc, and 11 grams per ton silver. So that verified the hole for us. So we went forward with the transaction. Same thing on hole number 2. You can see ESF 002 was 180 meters of 0.29 tin, 1% zinc, and 13 grams per ton silver. Our hole hit 182 of 0.2, 0.29, 0.94% zinc, and 24 grams per ton silver. Again, these are long intercepts that have been very, very well received and helpful for us when I was at New Pacific to have hundreds of meters of silver mineralization, and at Carangas they've got 1,000 meters of both tin and gold. So these are, and if you can get these rethinks that the mineralization extends out to where this dotted line is around the 2 twinned holes. If you can get these kinds of mineralized envelopes, they tend to be, hopefully, if the grade is good enough, if they're big enough, and that's that's where we have to test, that you can get yourself an economic deposit. So again, we put the assay results up here with a silver equivalent for reference. 0.45% tin on ESF 001 is 200 grams per ton silver equivalent, including the 68 meters of 0.49 tin, 1.6 zinc, 9 grams per ton silver is 237 grams per ton. Again, remember, silver sand, which is a pit, will be a pit configuration. Its grades in silver, 120 grams per ton silver, and we believe the PEA has come out that it will be an economical operation. So at 211 and 196 and 283 grams per ton silver equivalent, we certainly should be in that realm, as long as we can extend the mineralized zone and we get relevant grades to these grades. Now, we have the Skukum Gold project. As you know, Tincorp was originally spun out of New Pacific, and this gold project was the main asset, and it was called Whitehorse Gold. Excuse me. And this is one of our assets inside the company. It is actually, right now, we're actually looking to transact this project. Echelon Partners is the ones who are helping us with this. But it is an advanced high-grade project. It's a past producer. It's in the Yukon. It's in a top-tier jurisdiction. It produced 79,000, almost 80,000 ounces of gold between 1986 and 1988. There's a 300-ton-a-day mill and tailings facility and a 50-person camp in there, so there's good infrastructure. There's 4,800 meters of underground tunnels, which you can drill from, which actually save money in terms of drilling from the surface because they are at various elevations through a mountain. There were three deposits: the Mount Skukum deposit, the Skukum Creek, and the Goodell deposit. And in 2021, 44 holes were drilled for 17,000 meters of drilling. In 2022, a resource estimate was completed. So this slide again shows Mount Skukum. The past producing part of the project was the Mount Skukum part of the gold mine, which is to the north. And Skukum Creek is to the southeast, and Goodell is to the east. And the historic Total Energold was the owner of the company between 86 and 88. The historic recoveries were 90%, and we have records to show that it actually was a profitable. It was a profitable mine for those 2 years. Gold was at $485 an ounce, and they were pulling 12 grams gold out of Mount Skukum. That's what made it profitable. Again, Skukum Creek and Goodell, I mentioned before, 6,000 meters of historic underground development, 5 portals, and it has just district scale potential because it's not finished yet. It's open in all directions. Here's the actual resource. It's 418 grams per ton gold equivalent at 8 grams per ton in the indicated category, and 517 ounces of gold equivalent at 533 grams per ton in the inferred. Average, not supposed to average them out, but probably be about 6.5, 7 grams per ton between the two. So again, why Bolivia and why us? This group has a history of success. My background is I started out with Mag Silver with Dr. Peter McGaw and Dan McGinnis, and in Mexico at the Juanicipio mine, high grade discovery, 1,700 grams per ton over 6 meters. But that was the discovery hole. PEA, they're in production today, finally in commercial production, 4,000 tons per day on the PEA. It's got a post IRR of 44.5%, average all in sustaining costs, capital costs of $5 an ounce. Now that's probably one of the low, besides Fresnillo, that's probably the lowest AISC in the business at $5 an ounce. That Juanicipio is just going to make money. Is all it's going to do. Anyway, it was part of the team that brought this to the market. Then I joined Silvercorp. After I left Mag Silver and met Ree Feng and joined Silvercorp and became the VP of corporate development there for a couple of years. And of course, what can I say about Silvercorp? Ree is a serial entrepreneur in mining. He's not interested in picking up assets that won't sustain themselves economically. If we spent X amount of dollars on it, but millions of dollars, and it turned out that it wasn't going to sustain itself, he would actually say, this is not worth it. We cannot bring non-economic assets into the marketplace. They're too hard to work. They're too dependent on taking a dilution from shareholders. He's not interested in that. He wants them to be able to fund themselves. And so he's been able to do that with the Ying mine in China. He hasn't issued a share since 2010 or 11. Pays a dividend. He's got $200 million in cash, $122 million investment, and he's profit distribution of $520 million back to shareholders. That's the kind of person you want to work with in mining. I've learned a lot from Ray, and I learned a lot from Peter. So I've been fortunate to have learned from some of the best in the business, and we bring successful operations to market. And I was the president once. I was with Ray at Silvercorp. Within 2 years, he went down to Bolivia, found the silver sand project, turned to me and said, "I need you to help me run this. Can you be president of New Pacific?" I ran New Pacific from 2017 to 2021, and it's a high grade discovery. The biggest hit was 383 grams over 76 meters. Again, good long intercepts. 215 million ounces of silver at 115 grams per ton. As I said, that's close to surface. That's what Ree likes. Open pit operations. His operation in China is underground, narrow vein. They're hard to work, but he still makes a profit. But these are easier to work, less. There's less overhead and less capital cost. So anyway, we come from a team of people who have done this before and been successful. So I did go through my background, and I did go through Ree's background in terms of New Pacific Metals and his success as an entrepreneur in mining with Silvercorp. Alex Zhang is a director, and he was the one who actually found the silver sand deposit in Bolivia and brought it to Ree and said, "I think this could be our next winner," and he was right. And Dr. Peter McGaw is a technical advisor. As I told you, I worked with Peter at MAG. I brought Peter into New Pacific, and I brought him as an advisor. Now, Peter is actually he was an advisor at New Pacific, but now he's on the board of New Pacific. And Peter only focuses on scale and grade projects. They have to be big, long-lived potential mines with like Ree, with a potential of becoming economic. He is now on the board of New Pacific, and he's a technical advisor to Tincorp. Warren Waldman is the chairman of the company of Tincorp, and he was the past in-house counsel for Silvercorp and worked with Ree for 12 years. Great, knows the securities law and business really well, and the mining business, so he's great to have as chairman. Hernan Uribe he's a director, but he's actually the country manager for New Pacific, and he was the one that found the Tincorp, the SF tin project and the Porvenir project, and brought them to Ree, and Ree came to me and said, "I need to bring you back into the fold as CEO to help me run these new tin projects." Bhakti Bhavani is an analyst in California who covers Silvercorp, widely respected and understands the business well. Derek Liu is a CFO. He's actually the CFO for Silvercorp as well. So again, understands the business and has enough time with the work that he does at Silvercorp, which is really an ongoing self-sustaining business, to give me a hand at Tincorp. And Flora Lowe is our corporate secretary and in-house counsel. She's a lawyer. So just to sort of sum up, Tincorp investment highlights: growing demand for tin, electrification and the shift towards sustainable energy drive, and the electrification and decarbonization of the world, and the growth in Internet of Things and all of the mobile technology that's going to be needed will require a lot of tin. Reserves are declining, production and global reserves are declining, grades and tons are shrinking, so a new supply is needed to feed this growth. Bolivia is home to some of the largest tin mines and tin deposits in the world. It is the sixth largest producer, but it is an underexplored country. It is, if you look at a map of the mines around Bolivia, in the countries around it, Peru, Chile, and Argentina, it's those three countries are full of mining dots. Bolivia hasn't had new mines brought online for the last 20 years. And there was a reason for that. But now it's got a stable government. It's had a stable government since 2005. And it's had a stable government since 2005. And so now it's ready to bring in foreign investment into its country. And as I mentioned before, our team has already been successful in bringing world-class discoveries from Bolivia to the forefront. So that's why I would, if I was an investor, and I am invested in Tincorp. I've got a heavy investment in Tincorp personally. That's why I would look at investing in Tincorp. So our structure, our largest shareholder, as I said, is Silvercorp with 29.2%. Pan American has 3.7%. They got that historically by holding 9% of New Pacific when we spun out Whitehorse Gold. Insiders have 12%, 12.8%, and the rest of the investing public own 54% of the company. We're trading at about 32 cents right now. 66 million shares out. Um, fully diluted 85 million, market cap's 21 million, and we have about $3.5 million in cash. That's my presentation for Tincorp. So I leave you with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation, Gordon. The most important factor in high-risk endeavors such as grassroots exploration is that you invest with serially successful, well-capitalized and connected people. This is what we will explore in the first segment. In the second segment, we will take a close look at Tincorp's two projects and their work plan by walking through the current geological model and asking some highlighting questions. For the third segment, we will spend some time understanding the history of tin mining and a rich endowment of tin mineralization that Bolivia possesses. For the final segment, we will take a close look at Tincorp's budget, as well as their short-term and long-term strategy. With this, let us move into the first segment, the people. All right, so the first question that I would like to ask you, Gordon, is of course you went through this during the presentation, but could you tell us a bit more in detail about your career, your education, your comeuppance into the mining industry, and your responsibilities at the New Pacific and MAG more thoroughly?
I have a background. I have a background in both business and government. I was a senior communications officer for the in the office of the Prime Minister. So I wound up when he left going to Toronto and working in a large ad agency doing handling the public relations and investor relations for the third largest ad agency in Canada. From that is when I started to learn about investor relations and about the investing public and the market. So when I left Toronto, I moved to Vancouver. So I took my investor relations knowledge and approached the Bank of, it was Burns Fry at the time, and Bank of Montreal picked up Burns Fry and told them that I could help them with their investor relations. So I happened to know one of the senior guys there, and he put me on the first IPO I had ever worked on in my life, which was BC Sugar, and we took them public for $75 million. Anyway, from there, I built an investor relations firm over a 24-month period that became the second largest IR firm in Canada. We had done $3 billion, $3.5 billion worth of financings in an IPO. So I come with a capital markets and political background. Then I wound up, somebody came to me and said, can you help us raise some money for this mining company? And I said, well, what is it? It's Mag Silver. I looked at it and I said, okay. All right, well, I'll see what I can do. And by the time I'd raised the money, they came to me and they asked me to be CEO. And I said, well, you really need a geologist here. I'm not a geologist. I have a science background. I've got a BSc in chemistry, but I'm not a geologist. So I said, you don't want me as CEO. I can run your capital markets. Let me find your CEO. So I found Dan McGinnis and brought him in. And it worked out really well because Dan was a really good geologist, is a really good geologist. But at that time, he really didn't have any understanding of capital markets at all. So the combination of a really good geologist with somebody who knew how to work the capital markets worked very well. And it didn't hurt that Peter McGaw we came in the company. Peter was already in the company at that time. He drilled the first drill hole, and Peter will correct me on this because he knows the numbers intrinsically, but I know it was something like 12 meters of 12 grams gold and 750 grams per ton silver. On the first drill hole, he drilled blind 400 meters below the surface, and you could see Fresnillo's, at the time it was Pinolas's main vein was 2 kilometers away. You could see it. And he went to them and said, you need to own this, because he bought it from a guy who sold it to him for $250,000 to build a gas station. And he went to Fresnillo and said, you guys should help me with this and you should own it. And they said, no. And he said, we've drilled over there. It's a silicious cap. It's all post mineral. And he said, it's not post mineral. You're in the valley that's eroded away. All of this area that you're working without the silicious cap we're standing on is what the whole place used to look like. There's silver where we're standing. And they didn't believe it. So he drilled that first hole and they never looked back. We never looked back from that. So my history of getting into the mining and resource game came through Mag Silver. So I was semi-retired after Mag, and I said, well, I don't really want to retire. And so I approached Sheree. I actually approached Lauren Waldman, who's the chair of our board, and said, think about me coming and giving you a hand with Silvercorp. And he said, well, your timing's perfect because Ree's looking for somebody to help. Oh, Ree sent me over to to China for a little while to look at the operation. And then I started doing corporate development for Silvercorp for about a year and a half, maybe almost 2 years. And then that's when he went over. Ree went down to Bolivia because Alex Zhang, who's also on the board, went down. Ree had a file on his desk. Somebody kept telling him to look at it. He looked at it. He didn't really believe that you could get 100 meters of 150 grams per ton silver. He thought somebody was fake. So he gave it to Alex. Alex, he said, go down and check this out. Alex went down. Alex said, I think this is real. You better come down and look at this. So Ree went down and looked at it. He went down in December. And of 2016, by March of 2017, and he only had 3 drill holes. This is what he did with 3 drill holes, and I think there was about 800 channel samples, but with 3 major drill holes. Refang went out and raised $20 million, put $20 million of Silvercorp money in it, and $4 million of his own money on 3 drill holes. And I said, oh my gosh, wow. I mean, that takes a lot of confidence to go in, and now it's 250 million ounces of silver at 115 grams per ton at surface. That starts at surface. And my third job is Joe returns to me and says, "Well, I need some help because I can't. I'm CEO of both companies, but I need somebody to help me, work this project in Bolivia. Will you be president of New Pacific?" I said, "Sure." And from 2017 to 2021, it started out, the stock got as low as New Pacific. When I started, it was $1, went down to 75 cents. But by the time I was walking out the door, it was almost $9 a share. And with Mag, it was the same thing. I came in, it was 50 cents. And when I left, it was $16 a share. I consider myself a good marketer. And that's how we get ourselves to, from 50 cents to $16 or from $1 to $10. And so I'm not a geologist. I've learned a lot about geology from Ree and from Peter McGaw and Dan McGinnis, but I'm not a geologist. But I can run one of these companies, and I've done it before. And with their help, with their geological expertise, they've handed me assets that have gone from $50 million market cap to $2.5 billion market cap. With Tincorp, when Ree came up to me, he said, "Look, I think that the Skukum asset in Whitehorse, it's a good gold asset. There's no question about that. At almost 1 million ounces at 7 grams. The jurisdiction is a good jurisdiction, but it's just harder to work if you're not living in the Yukon, and you have to deal with First Nations, which everybody can do, but it's expensive to operate there." And he said, "Let's go to a less expensive jurisdiction where you've already set up the infrastructure. You already know the politicians and the ministers and the people involved in the permitting, and do this again. I think we need to do it with tin." And I said, "Well, Ree, I don't really know anything about tin." He said, "Well, did you know anything about silver before you started working silver? What did you know?" I said, "Well, I knew that if you had scale, if you have scale and you've got grade, you have the potential for economics. So it doesn't really," he says, "does it matter to you what the commodity is?" I said, "No, as long as you're handing me something that's got scale and grade." He says, "Well, I see grade so far in the preliminary drill holes that they've drilled, others have drilled. I don't know about scale, but we'll find out. And if it's not scalable, then we will walk away from it because it won't be economic." That's the way he thinks. right? And if the grade doesn't hold up and it's not going to be economic, we're not going to go back to the market and ask people for money, and we're not going to do all these financings while we're in production to shore up our business. That's not the way to run a business. It has to be run. It has to run on its own merits and its own economics.
All right, Feng. So, could you please tell us about your career until this new venture that is Tincorp?
Okay, so I was born in China and I did a geology master degree, undergraduate degree, and a master degree, and I went to Canada in 1985 to pursue a PhD degree. So I got my PhD degree in geology in Canada, and ever since I started work as a geologist. And in 1996, I started to become a mining entrepreneur, trying to make discovery and trying to develop some profit mining operation. So one of the company we built, I set up 2003 called Silvercorp. So the focus on looking, exploring for silver, like zinc, and gold in China. And before that, we also made a big gold discovery, and we sold that to China Gold. Now it's one of the largest gold mine in China. And so that's before '03. And in '03, we set up this Silvercorp. We've been making over the last many years. We've been making like over $600 million US out of China for Silvercorps. And with that, we're looking for more opportunity to kind of diversify out of China. So that's why we got involved with Tincorp. Yeah, this New Pacific is another venture kind of because we're trying to utilize our geological expertise in terms of making discovery, identify the opportunity, and making discovery. So we in 2017 we went to Bolivia and acquired some silver sand project, and then we we made a big discovery. And then now the silver sand is almost over 200 million ounces of silver. Open pitable, it's going to be open pitable mines. And right after that, we made another big discovery in Bolivia through New Pacific, which is Carangas project. So with that two success, and then there's a shortage of tin uh, from China because China is a major tin producer, and the China tin mine is going deeper, and tin also became China's strategic minerals in 2018, 2019. So that's the time we think about, tin, maybe China will run out of tin. They were a big producer, but they are running out, so there'll be a tin shortage in the future.
You've been serially successful as an exploration geologist, and you're involved in many successful projects. Could you just tell a bit about the story at MAG and the tremendous success that you've seen there, and a bit about your career as well?
Well, I've been an exploration geologist for more than 40 years, primarily focused on high-grade silver replacement systems and veins in Mexico. But as one might expect, the world's rocks don't know anything about international boundaries. And so some of the ideas that we've been working with over the years have definitely evolved out of Mexico into the Western US, Canada, and then down through South America. But the principal feature was recognizing and understanding where the world's biggest silver deposits were, and the old idea that the best place to look for a mine is in the shadow of the head frame of an existing mine is part of what led us to the Fresnillo district, which sits on the Fresnillo Silver Trend, which is a regionally mappable structure that contains 4 of the world's 15 billion plus ounce primary silver district. So a great address, a great regional structure to work on. And what we discovered with our first drill hole was that just to the west of the known part of the historic Fresnillo district, which is now the world's largest single primary silver district, there was alteration that suggested there was more of the system extending in that area. And our first drill hole proved that. And then our 16th drill hole found the Valdecañas vein, which has become the largest vein ever found in the Fresnillo district.
Peter, could you tell us a bit about your background and experience working with Gordon at Mag Silver and with Feng and Gordon at New Pacific Metals?
Well, I worked with Gord for at least 10 years at Mag. That was a very pleasant experience, especially since that tracked the major discovery that we made of the Valdecañas vein. And then he went off and did some other things, ultimately wound up working with Lee, and then brought me in first with New Pacific, and then more recently with Tincorp. And so I'm really looking forward to digging my teeth into the Bolivian tin belt. I've been fascinated by the connection between silver and tin for many years, and of course, Bolivia is Main Street as far as that overlap is concerned.
Just to add on, I mean, it's a very intriguing point, of course, is the people. That's the main point. I think the success, the past success, and people should be willing to take risk with people such as this if they're willing to take risk at all in this business. But can we touch back again on how much, in percentage term of the market cap or the entire company, do you personally own, and how much does Re own? What's the split of the insiders in terms of percentage holding?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna get this right. I'm pretty sure I own 500,000 shares and 1,000,000 options, right? And I'll have to do the math on that. But it's probably it's 1% or something like that. Maybe it's actually 2. Re has Silvercorp itself owns, as I said, 29.2%. Re is personally invested, I think, for about 4%. And one of our employees, his son, owns about 3% of the company, Victor. So we are, we're invested in personally in the company. And again, I don't make my money in these businesses, in these projects, on my salary. I make my wealth on my holdings in the company. I do have We do have a history, and it's not like a history of luck. These guys, McGaw, McGinnis, and Fang, this is what they do for a living. They go out and they find economic deposits, and they find them all the time. And yes, they haven't been 100% successful. So I can't say with 100% surety that these two projects will pan out. But I can say that given the history that I've had with these guys, I would be very surprised if these what they're presenting to me and what they're presenting to the investing public doesn't pan out to be fruitful.
Yeah, certainly, and the odds of succeeding in this business is not that high. So
No, but what you have to do is look at the people who have been successful, and you look at those people and look at how many times they've been successful. And usually a handful of these people who are constantly being successful and adding value for shareholders. I think Rick Rule says it both best. Some of the, and I'm not denigrating my own group, and I know everybody tries really hard, and I know some geologists are better than others, and some people are better at marketing. But some of the money that goes into some of these resource companies is not really well deployed, and it becomes I think the word that they use is a lifestyle investment from shareholder to the management. if you do what we have done, which is take money at 50 cents and a dollar and make it into $10 and $16, then I don't have to explain to anybody whether I'm a lifestyle guy, because my investors say to me, geez, I'll give you here, take more money, because every time I give you money, you give me back more money, and I'm making more money for myself. So yeah, I'm not concerned about going into the market and doing a financing, because if my geologists are correct, we will bring the fifth new um, tin discovery to the market in Bolivia in the last 40 years.
Now for the second segment, we will let Tincorp's resource geologist Kai Ran walk through the geological models and work plan for the two tin projects. We will then follow this by asking Ree and Gordon a few questions about metallurgy, offtake, and the social license. Could you tell us a bit about yourself and your role at Tincorp and your career prior to Tincorp and your education?
Oh, hi. Great to speak to you. So, I'm the resource geologist at Tincorp. So, basically, I'm in charge of geology here. Before I joined the Tincorp, I just finished my PhD degree in geology in Colorado School of Mines. So, I joined the company in last September. So, now I'm in charge of this tin exploration project in Bolivia. So the company acquired this project last year, and now we are drilling right now. So before we come to this project, there's some historical walking in this project, which is outlined by the orange line in the map. So all these orange line are historical audits. They have been mined by artisanal miner, which exposed the surface outcrop of the mineralization vents. And also between 2005 to 2011, there's a Japanese company called Dowa. They put on 88 holes in this project, but unfortunately, they only selective sampled 2.5 kilometer. So they didn't give us too much data, but the data they reviewed at least show us there's a lot of potential here, and there's a lot of high-grade mineralization in this project. So after we acquired this project, we recovered a lot of cores from the Dowa drilling plan. Actually, we recall like a certain 1.3 kilometer of the historical cores, and we resample them, re-assay them, and relog them. And actually, what we find out is the mineralization interval is way much more like continuous and extensive than what the Japanese data reviewed. So, that's the reason we like this project, and that's the reason we want to jump in and do a 2023 drilling program. So here's the Porvenir project. So basically, from the orange color is the outline of the historical walking, and with the drill hole data, we find out there are at least 3 mineralization ore body here. So the first one is called Siawasa, second one is called Condonasa, and we do have another one called Paco East. So Paco East is what we say for future. Siawasa is great, it's large, but what we find out the best is Condonasa come with the best assay and the highest grade. So that's the reason we have 2023 drilling program focused on the Condonasa ore body, which is in the middle of the map. So with this ore body, we designed at least 6 holes, which may be going to be 7 or going to be 8 in the future, but we designed 6 holes to reveal all the potential on this ore body. So in this case, we begin with the surface mapping. On the surface mapping, I think there's another vein, which is shown by the dashed line here in the orange color. So we think there's another ore body going all the way along here. So let's tell us, why do we have so many high-grade zones in here revealed by historical data? So what we did is we made a 3-dimensional interpolation, and that's what we find out. We think there's another ore body right over here. So with the 2023 drilling program, our first 5 hole is trying to confirm that we do have 2 ore body in the Condonasa zone, and these 2 ore body interact around the location of drill hole number 4 and go all the way north-south. So that's the reason we have first 5 hole plan here, and then we have drill hole number 6, trying to test the continuity and also extension of the Condonasa major ore structure going all the way to southeast. So now let's check on some cross sections. Our best cross section is definitely along the Juho number 1, Juho number 2. So which is going this way. So with this cross section, we can find out historical data of 41 and 59. Both give us very good assay and very good intervals. So if my interpretation is right, we have two ore body. One is this one, the other one is this one. So one on the left, one on the right. So our drill hole number 1 is going to be confirmed as two separate ore body, and our drill hole number 2 is going to be a scissor hole to test the chill thickness and also the angle, the dipping angle of the ore body number 2 right here. So after we finish drill hole number 1, we're going to do drill hole number 2 as a scissor hole. Then we jump to drill hole number 3. Drill hole number 3 is going to be interact close ore body as well. So at the shallow part, interact with the north-south going one. And also, if we go to 250 meter to 300 meter, we're going to interact with the major oral bearing structure. So after drill hole number 3, we go for drill hole number 4. Drill hole number 4 actually is going to be the interaction of two ore body. We're going to see mineralization right here. So it's going to be between 200 meter to 250 meter. Actually, the drill hole number 1, 2, 3, 4 has been finished already. The assay is expecting to come into us by the end of August, and we will publish a news release then. Looking forward to see the result, and we believe it's going to be super good.
So, Kairan, in terms of the kind of the widths of these planes of mineralization, what are the average widths that you expect of these two ore bodies that kind of merge together here at south of, or what is that? Is that drill hole 4 that's testing the intersections of them, right?
Yeah, drill hole number 4 is testing the intersection of the two ore body together. So we don't really know the true thickness right now, but we're expecting to see about 30 to 50 meters of mineralization interval in drill hole number 4.
What kind of grades do you suspect that these ore bodies will? What characteristics do you think in terms of that, like zinc, tin? Generally, we've seen a bit of zinc and some pretty good tin grades, and the silver. Do you think it will be consistent throughout? Is there any zonation? Can you give a bit more color what you guys suspect is going on?
So far, it's hard to say right now. So what we can say, the ore body here in this project is composed of massive sulfide. So previously, in our previous news release, DOA, in the historical course, DOA did give us some good data, which the average grade can be, the best interval can be 0.6% of tin. So if you do the math, that's actually 1.8. That actually means 1.8% of copper. That's the same value. So that result is very encouraging. And we are not sure about our asset yet, but based on what we drilled, we find the same style of mineralization. And also, the cassiterite is the major ore mineral, but it's not really visible. It's kind of fine grained and associated with fluorite. So the zinc is fluorite, which looks very good in our drill hole. I cannot say we are expecting to see how much of tin, but it's going to be good.
And the recoveries for the tin mineralization, what do you guys see? Do you have any comparisons for what you're seeing at Porvenir of what you could expect in the tin recoveries?
So Porvenir is on the Bolivia tin belt, and on the north end of the tin belt, there's a project called the San Rafael project in Peru. So that project has the same style of mineralization as Porvenir, and their tin recovery rate is over 50%. So I think we can do better than that. It's like with new technology going on right now. So in China, so in the Yunnan tin, they have a recovery rate of 17 already. So with 70% already. So we think we can reach in some point like that, maybe, but I cannot, we haven't done the metallurgical test yet. So we will see.
And in terms of the depth of these ore bodies that intersect here, what do you guys have any idea of where they might stop, or is it to be continued, or do you have any academics on it, or any reference of how deep they might extend?
So far, it's hard to say. So every single drill hole, like we find of the historical course, they reveal the mineralization ore body. Like we think it's open to deep at this point, but with the future drilling, we probably have a better answer for you.
Okay, and between these, is there any, so to speak, distribution of the metals that kind of goes outside of these pink boundaries that you guys have? Is the mineralization bleeding out and fading out into lower grade around the main kind of ore bodies?
It's still high grade, but it's composed with a lot of like veins of like winlets. So it's not really continuous, but it goes everywhere. So it's still of high grade, but we want to see a continuous interval.
Yeah.
So the pink ore body I point out is because they are just like relatively large, and also it's quite continuous in the interval.
Just to clarify for everyone, this type of mineralization, what kind of mining method would one hypothetically use to extract this ore, you think?
You mean the mining method?
Yeah.
So far, this has been historically designed to be a underground mining program, but since we are finding the true thickness actually is bigger than we thought, so we probably will think about the potential of open pit.
Okay.
But that's not 100% for now. We are just thinking about it.
And in terms of the strike length, if we look at that, the strike length of the ore body, do you have any idea of how far it might extend, or is that also yet to be continued? What's your hypothesis on that?
So far, the north part we reached is a PV70, so that's one point of this ore body, and we don't know how far it going to southeast. So that's the future plan. So we're definitely gonna put the drill hole number 7 right here, but that depends on the drilling result of first 6 hole. So minimum the extension is gonna be about 700 meter along the strike.
Oh yeah, that's very good. And if you have a true thickness of yeah, it's promising. And the depth currently, what, just to clarify, I don't think we mentioned it, but what is the depth currently of the?
So currently our depth like has go all the way from surface to, I think it's about 350 to 400 meter.
Okay.
In this range.
And could you just showcase some of the highlight intercepts that you guys have had from relogging the Dova cores that you could recover up until now? Could you just showcase them in the model so people can see what they look like?
So the best interval we have is in the drill hole 41. So it's gonna be this interval. This interval comes us with like so this interval come to us with 60 meters. So this 60 meters, the average weighted average is gonna be 0.7% of tin. So this is our best interval so far.
Okay, so could you just clarify what is the depth of the current ore body?
So with our best cross section, it's right here. I think the depths go all the way from surface because we did find the mineralized outcrop on the surface. Go all the way from surface to down. I think it's about 400 meters.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's open to deep.
Yeah. Just to highlight the potential grade of these, grade of the parts of the ore bodies that you have intercepted, could you just showcase some of the parts that you have been able to assay from the Dova cores?
This is the legend of tin. So from the pink color, it's over 2%. So if we check out this interval, it comes with us with about 60 meters of mineralized interval, and the grade of tin is about 0.7. So this has been released in our previous news release. So the best interval we have is this one along the drill hole 41.
Perfect. Yeah. Do you have any more holes that intersect the hypothetical ore body, so people can get a better sense of the, like, what the average grade could potentially be of the higher grade, ore body?
Sure. For this one, for the new determined one, so we do have drill hole number 59. So this one also comes with very good result, but because we only have limited sample, and though the previous company they didn't really assay everything, we have one part of interval missing, so we cannot really say. But for every single interval, this is already over 1% of tin. So I think it's still very encouraging. So if we check out the southeast part of this ore body, we do have another cross section I can show you guys. So in the southeast part, there's a drill hole called drill hole number 10 and drill hole number 7. There are 2 holes, and they both come with very good grade. So this one comes with so this is a 40 meters long interval, and it comes with 0.6% of tin. So that's very good. Another one is this one. So in the drill hole number 7, there's 20 meters interval come with 0.6% of tin, which is also very encouraging. So this tells us like this ore body is not only in this small pocket, it's go all the way from northeast to southwest.
Yes, and just to clarify for everyone, why did Dova sample as they did? Did they go for any particular type of mineralization, or what was the reason they were so selective with their sampling? Or did they sample everything but you just don't have access to it? Or what could you explain that?
I think they were targeting the sulfide only. They were only sampling the massive sulfide zones, and they were only sampling something, like sphalerite, like a pyrite, they can say. But based on my knowledge, cassiterite technically is oxidized mineral. It not necessarily be confined in the sulfide veins. It can also be disseminated. It can also be like in stringer, so associated with chloride alteration in the wall rocks. So when they only sample the sulfide ore body, sulfide veins, they are missing a lot of like potential tin mineralization. So that's the reason we are doing the resampling program, find out the ore body is actually bigger than what they find, and that's the reason we are drilling. We are starting a new drilling program because we all have new core, fresh core to find out the true thickness of the ore body.
Yes. So drill hole 6 is planned for now, and are you going to do drill hole 7 even more to the southeast in this depending on when you know the drill hole 6?
Yes, we do. So that depends on our drilling like result. We don't even need to know the assay results. I just need to see what kind of core can we recover from drill hole 6 and drill hole 5. So once we have these two done, like we are really thinking about moving the rig to drill hole number 7 and give us another drill hole in this direction.
How large of a step out is that from 6?
From number 6, that's gonna be 200 meter.
And at what depth are you trying to intersect the ore body for drill hole 7 and 6 respectively?
Drill hole 7 is hard to say right now, but from drill hole 6, we are expecting to see the mineralization of 200 meter, if my interpretation is right. And for drill hole 7, we definitely want to do it right somewhere right here. So this ore body will be, so if we're drilling from the mountain to deep, so I think we're going to see the mineralization about 180 to 200 meter.
What's the reason for the depth that you guys are selecting? Is there any logic behind that? Why you're going for that depth, not testing it shallow? Because so far there have been no testing on, let's say, closer than 100 meters to surface, right?
So because we do have like something like open pit. It's not open. It's like a small pit on the surface. There was artisanal miner mining here. So the only reason they were mining here is because they already find a high grade ore on the surface. So we don't need to spend money on proving like we do have mineralization on the surface. So when we have the surface mineralization proven, so we can link them with the mineralization in the deep. So that's the reason we are targeting into the deep about 120 meter or 130 meter below the surface, so we can link them together, know the strike, know the deep of the ore body.
Okay, so you feel like you have sufficient data from grab sampling and stuff like this from the surface to kind of prove that the mineralization has a consistent grade profile as well, closer to surface as you're intersecting at depth. Is that right?
Yes, because like the artisanal miner here, they're still from the community. So before we come here, they were still working here. So I talked with them already. I even check out their samples. I do see the cassiterite in their samples. So there's no doubt there's high grade mineralization on the surface. That's the reason they have a huge pit going on. Oh, sorry. That's the reason they have an audit going on.
Okay, so that's good. Could we briefly look at the other two ore bodies for a moment? If you could just tell, you do have, you're not going to drill there, but to give a sense of the kind of the further potential of the region. You have the eastern one as well, right?
Yeah, sure. Let's start with Silvercorp. To clarify, we are gonna drill there. It's just not right now. So now our focus is on the Condonasa, but we're gonna drill here in the future. So if you check out the orange line of the historical walking, it continues along this direction, from northeast to west south, and dipping slightly to west. So if we make cross section just right here. So this is what this ore body looks like. So these are the DOA assay gave us. So DOA only did a selective assay, but we find a lot of we recovered a lot of historical cores and we re-assay them. So let me show you what we find out. So last interval we reviewed. So if we put this together, so this gives us a 16 meter of interval comes with 0.7% of tin. So that's very good result. So this is this prove DOA actually they missed a lot of ore body. So that's the reason they didn't pay enough attention on the Siawasa ore body. So this ore body go all the way from northeast to southwest. So if we measure it, it extends over 1.5 kilometer long. That's a huge ore body. So at this point, we're gonna do it, not right now because we don't have enough data on this ore body, but that's gonna be our next step.
How are you going to collect more data on this ore body without committing capital to drilling it?
Oh, we're gonna do it, but before that, I have George on site doing surface mapping and grab surface samples right now. So with enough grabbing sample and with more George observation, we'll make a better drilling plan. We're gonna do it, just not right now.
Do you think that will be likely to be a priority, say after the next funding that Tincorp will have to try to test these targets, or do you think more drilling will be focused on the main ore body here at Porvenir?
Our focus will still be on the Condonata, but it's not only on our only focus, because as you see, we already find another small one, not small, another ore body, high grade ore body going on in this direction. So what we're gonna try to do is find a more parallel ore body. So and also we're gonna definitely test out the potential of CLS as well. And moreover, we also have an ore body in the west side of the project. So this is called Poco East and the Poco West. They both have a great potential. Once we confirm the mineralization structure in the main ore body, all these are our future targets.
Excellent. And can I just ask you? So you guys are thinking now. You saw greater thickness of the ore body than you thought, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how would and you're already starting to think maybe there is open pit potential here. Where would that be placed? Because would it be placed somewhere where they intersect this new ore body, this new kind of little intersection ore body to the west of the main one here in the middle?
Well, as I said, the open pit potential is hypothesis right now. We don't really know how large is the ore body. That's the reason we're still drilling. So, but yes, so far the best interval we have is the intersection with the ore body. But we don't know how many parallel ore body we are going to find. So there's a potential. There's one right over here, and the potential there's another one next to it. If there's so many parallel ones has not been defined, and we can discover them in the future. So that will be an open pit potential. But now I just cannot tell you the exact answer.
Okay, certainly. And which of the drill holes that you're doing now will hopefully intersect both of these ore bodies? Again, could you just repeat that?
Sure. We are currently doing drill hole number 5 as highlighted here. So the drill hole number 5 first is designed to test the south extension of this ore body and also go through the main ore body. So this drill hole is expected to interact the ore body twice. So from 100 meter to 350 to between 350 to 40 meter, we're going to intersect with the major ore body, and the other one we're going to interact at 100 meter. So next step, we're strong to San Florencio. For San Florencio is another project we're going to drill very soon. So this project is only 2 hours drive away from Porvenir, and it's only 1 hour drive away from Hanuni, the largest producing tin mine in Bolivia. So this project has a lot of potential, and it also has some historical working here. So the red, if you see the red one, the red line actually outlines the historical open pit. The historical open pit is about 150 meter long, 100 meter wide, and 20 meter deep. So there's a lot of tin produced here before, and we do have a historical mineral processing facility on site, but they're just too old, historical to be used. Rio Tinto has drilled here in 1997, and we tuned the 2 holes of them, and both find exactly the same result as the previous data told us. So tell us they are at least 200 meter So drill hole number 1, we do have 200-meter mineralization going on here, and for drill hole number before we started drilling season of 2023, we did 2 verification holes here. So we twinned 2 holes of Rio Tinto, which was drilled in 1997, and they both give us a very good result as we released in previous news. So the drill hole number 1 give us at least 200-meter mineralization interval, and the drill hole number 2 give me 180-meter mineralization interval. The average grade in drill hole number 1 is 0.4, and average grade in drill hole number 2 is 0.2. So 0.2% of tin. So very encouraging and a very big ore body. So before, and also we did a channel sampling in the open pit. Also come back with very good result. This also come back with very good result. It's proved that there's good tin mineralization in the pit.
Do you have any information on the grades from the channel sampling and maybe the grades that were historically mined from the pit? Is that something that you know? If you do, it would be good if you share it.
So this is our corporate presentation. So this show you where the mineralization zone are. So we did 5 channel sampling all around the pit. So it gives us very good results. So the best result I think is this one, 90 meter of 0.4% tin, and the other one is this one, 12 meter of 0.62% of tin. So with this project, so since drill hole number 1 and drill hole number 2 has already find a good mineralization interval, and we also find mineralization good mineralization in the open pit, it's not hard for us to interpret the thickness of the ore body. So let's make a cross section right along the pit. So since drill hole number 1 and drill hole number 2 has revealed very good mineralization, and we also find very good mineralization in the open pit. So it won't be hard for us to make interpretation on the ore body, on the shape of ore body, and on depth of ore body. So let's make a cross section right along the pit. So as you can see here, so if we have mineralization in the open pit, and we also have very good mineralization in the drill hole number 1, so our interpretation would be look like this. So that's our interpreted ore body. It's slightly dipping west, and the true thickness is more than 150. And the true thickness, let me measure it, is about 200 meters true thickness. So this will give us a very good ore body shape and a very good potential for open pit. So after talking about drill hole number 1, we also have drill hole number 2 here. So that's the same story. Continuous mineralization and the ore body like this. So we know this ore body go all the way from drill hole number 1 to drill hole number 2, but we haven't checked out the north extension and south extension yet. Since we know the ore body extending from north to south, before we check out the extension along the strike, we want to know the depth. We want to know the depth and the thickness of the ore body first. Yes, we do have good interpretation, but in order to prove it, we need to put on more drill holes. So that's the reason we're gonna put the first 2 holes just around the open pit. So it's going to be like this. Drill hole number 1 and drill hole number 2 are designed to test the true thickness and the depth of the ore body. So they are just like besides the historical hole number 1, but one to the west, one to the east. So drill hole number 1 and drill hole number 2 are designed to test the depth and thickness of the ore body. So they are just applying in the same cross section as the historical drill hole number 1. So in this case, we know the true thickness and also know the also confirm the dipping direction of the ore body. So after we put down two holes like this, then next step we'll test the continuity between drill hole number 1 and drill hole number 2, and also test the extension to the north and south. But that's future plan.
Currently, only 2 holes are planned. 1 and 2, right?
2 are confirmed. We do have more planned, but 2 are confirmed. That's something we're going to drill this year. So I don't want to talk too much about something not confirmed.
Okay. And these 2 holes will be drilled after Porvenir sequentially, presumably.
So these 2 holes were drilled after Porvenir drilling program finished. Then we'll move the rig to San Florencio to finish these 2 holes.
Could you zoom in on the cross section again with 1 and 2? And then here, when we look at drill hole 1, you're testing an extension outside of the currently believed thickness, right?
Yes.
So do you have any reason to believe that the thickness extends further? Why are you testing this hypothesis? Is this just a to see if it does so, or do you have any indications of it that it might?
Because there's so many uncertainty going on in this region, because the east side of the property was covered by a way much younger volcanic rock. This volcanic rock just is super young and covered everything, so we cannot see any outcrop on the east side of our body. So maybe the ore body going all the way like this, we just cannot see anything from the surface. That's the reason we designed the geohole to be longer.
Okay, and that the potential mineralization under cover, I guess what you would call it, do you think that that would come pretty close to surface still?
We just don't know how far, like how thick is the volcanic rock. But based on my surface mapping job, I don't think it's gonna be too thick. But driving through volcanic rock is, it's just like not ideal right now. So that's the reason we designed a drill hole, drilling through the sedimentary rock all the way to test the potential beneath the volcanic rock.
So there is no information on how thick the volcanic rock is currently. Do you have any intervals or anything like that?
No, we haven't drilling. The drilling based on the verification hole of number 1, number 2, we didn't drilling through the volcanic rock yet.
And then in terms of the depth currently, do you have any indications on how deep this ore body might be, or is it narrowing? Do you even know if it's narrowing at depth or what? Because it looks like this is kind of a fold containing mineralization, right? And presumably it should narrow at depth.
So this is this will probably be an anticline, but less interpretation. So now something confirmed. This is a pressure hosted and a windlet hosted mineralization style is quite thick. We don't know what's going on in the deep, so that's the reason we have drill hole number 2 designed like this. And the drill hole number 2 actually probably gonna extend it if we keep seeing mineralization in the depths. So we don't know will it be narrower in deep or maybe just keep going keep going to the deep. I think at this point I can call it open to deep.
And do you think that there is any before in the historical Rio Tinto or the twin drill hole that you guys have done, the mineralization starts at, I don't know what the depth is there, but it starts intersecting with your pit line to the left there. But prior to that, there is almost no. It's completely sterile. Is that right?
So actually, like the red dot here, so we do have some good mineralization. Actually, it's like the right. Give me a second. Actually, it's like the red interval here. We do find some windlass, like in a shallow position, but they are too narrow, so we don't see too much economic value of it. But yeah, there's a potential. There are some windlass outside of the main ore body.
And when you're more importantly, when you're doing the second drill hole, do you think that there is potential for you to intercept mineralization, or what would you call it, shallower or outside of this drawn boundary that you guys have for the current mineralization, based on the historical twin drill hole?
Yes, of course. We do see some mineralization in the verification hole number 1. So if there's more parallel vein like that, we'll see them in the drill hole number 2. That's the potential of this project. But so far our main focus is the major ore body.
Could you kind of highlight the grades of the historical drill hole, just so everyone get a sense of?
So if you see that our drill hole number 1 has actually 200 meters of 0.4, and the drill hole number 2 has 100 meters of 0.29.
What what's the current hypothesis of because this is potentially quite large in terms of bulk tonnage, right? You will have a lot of potential ore here in the future. What do you guys suspect currently would be the kind of average grade based on the small amount of data that you have currently? And do you have any hypothesis that there will be any zonation in this more distributed type mineralization?
So this ore body on the based on the drill hole is quite continuous and consistent from drill hole number 1 to drill hole number 2. The best estimation, the average grade will be 0.3 to 0.4% of tin minimally. But we are actually, we don't know yet. We will find out more data once we finish the drilling season this year.
Perfect. And in terms of, could you go back to the potential strike length? If you just look at that, and the other historical drill hole, could we look at that as well? The other twin hole.
Sure. Drill hole number 3, I think they, as we can see, we think this ore body probably go a little bit northeast, but the Rio Tinto designed definitely too well. I think they missed the shot. And the Juho number 4, they do come with some grade, but actually it's very low. So we definitely think they missed the shot as well. So we're gonna do step by step. I think they all, like every step they make is too large. It's about more than 200-meter interval. That's too much step south. So we're gonna do step by step, maybe 50 to 100-meter interval every single hole.
Could you highlight, because we haven't looked at the intersection of the second twinned hole to the north?
So this is a cross section of the second twin holes. The second twin holes come with 180 meters of 0.2% of tin.
Okay, and do you have any theory as to why it seems to be a bit lower here in grade in this intersection? I mean, you have one part of it seems to be higher grade, but the part closer to surface seems to be a bit weaker in the grade department.
That's just about the anticline structure, it's about the mineralization structure. So they probably be a little bit inconsistent in the ore grade. So, but we don't know yet. So there's a high grade zone probably in a deep or even shallower position. So there's one hole, actually there are twin hole, right? These two hole, we only know limited information. Once we put on another shallow hole or a deeper hole, we will have a better idea.
And it seems like this hole ended in quite high grade mineralization, right? So presumably that would extend a bit along dip.
Yes, for the Rio Tinto hole number 2, like they ended up in a very high grade zone. We don't really know why. But with our hole, with our verification hole, our high grade mineralization end about 250 meter. We extended for like about 30 meter into the deep, and so the last pit of our hole was kind of barren, but we don't know if anything else in deep yet.
And in terms of the recovery, you say that they have the best technology for recovering tin in China. What kind of recoveries do they see with their mineralization generally in their operations?
I think tin is a very unique mineral. It depends, right? Depends on the mineralogies. So if you're lucky, if you're lucky, you have an easy mineral, high grade, you may get like 80% recovery. But most time this tin cassiterite, they are fine grained, so they mostly go with the pyrite. They grow with pyrite together, and so it's tend to be difficult to recovery. So it may go up to 60-70%. Like so far in Bolivia, the tin recovery is about 50%. In China, some of the similar deposit, you may get a 60% recovery, 60-70% recovery, right? So, and also smelter. Once you have a tin concentrate, who's going to do smelter for you? Like that's another thing. China is still the largest tin smelters because somehow smeltering business is kind of dirty, right? Dirty business, and that's why I think Bolivia people are also interested in that recovery technology and also smeltering, right? So they hopefully have a real modern smelter. Now they have some smelter there, but it's kind of old technology and old, right? And maybe they also work on a new technology, new investment in tin smelter, right? Industry. So that's I think there's a place for them to come to play, right?
So in terms of the payabilities for tin concentrate, I'm not familiar with that. What usually do people get in China in terms of offtake agreements for their tin concentrate?
Offtake tin agreement is it's about 90%. You could get in China because we Silvercorp we produce a little bit of tin concentrate, right? Actually, our GC mine also produces some tin concentrate from the tailing of the recovered silver zinc, and there's a lot of pyrite. And then we subcontract another Chinese business, and then they were working with together in our mill to recover tin, right? So typically we get almost 90% of Shanghai price. Shanghai's metal exchange price times 90%, and deduction of the VAT, right?
So you would potentially see, if Bolivia doesn't build a modern tin smelter, you would think that offtake would eventually probably go to China.
I think so. I think they are, as I said, China produce almost over 50-60% tin for the whole world, right? And that's in for many metals like that, like copper, same thing. And they take a copper concentrate from Chile, right? And Canada, and to smelter, and then export pure metals, right? So like nickel, cobalt, lithium, same thing. Like 70% worldwide lithium metal was produced in China, but they buy actually lithium concentrate from Australia, right? In Canada, in Africa.
And in terms of your current project, San Florencio, Porvenir, uh, do you have a sense of how the tin is tied up in the rock? What type of mineralization are you seeing there? Is it very fine grained, or is it?
I think most tin will be considered right. There are fine grain, there's low. There are fine grain, there are coarse grain. It can sometimes can see with the eyes. Like but I think based on right now, the guy has no technology. Just they can get a 50% recovery, right? And so in our hope, we would like have a 60-70% recovery, hopefully in the future.
So, in terms of carrying out metallurgical testing, when are you planning to do that, and where would you do it, and what's the timeline on doing metallurgical testing?
I would do is like after this drilling, right? To do once you got the assay result back, we can start to do some metallurgical test. I would suggest to use China, Chinese metallurgical companies, engineering company to do recovery test because like in Canada, there's nobody operate a tin mine, and so in the UK used to have a lot of tin mine, but all those guys gone already. So you have to go where there's a lot of tin mine, and also there are a lot of mill, right, and for expertise. So that's what we're trying to do.
And these would only, of course, be very preliminary metallurgical testing to get a sense of things. It's not something that would be enough for a PEA or something like that, I assume.
No, you can do this test, and also you can do a mineralogical study, like with a electronic scan microscope, and then you can see what the size of a tin mineral like cassiterite, right? And to see what happened there, right? And then you can do that kind of work, and then I think it will give you a good indication, right? Oh, this is easy recovery or tough recovery, right?
Could you just tell me about the kind of the communities local to your projects? What's the current relationship like, and what's the activity like there?
So the communities in all of Bolivia are always very interesting, and they're in almost any jurisdiction you work in. If you don't, if you haven't socialized your communities from the beginning, you're you're running the risk of putting this money into the ground into something that you can't operate, which is a waste of time and money. At Porvenir, we are golden, I would say. The leaders of that community have welcomed us with open arms. We're employing some of their people there. It's a smaller community. It's to the west of the road of Wanuni. Um, we have helped them with a river program where the talus that's coming down the river has kind of blocked the culverts underneath the road, and they were threatening to wash out the road. So they asked us for some help, and we went in. They paid for some of it. We paid for some of it. We put a backhoe in there and we dredged the river, and we built, excuse me, so that they wouldn't get flooding in their village. We put a new gate in for them. We're talking about putting in a store for them. They've I've had 2 or 3 dinners with them. They're very wonderful people. They've helped us, and and they've written us a letter of like, we're on your side. We're in. You can, we agree with whatever you want to do here. We agree with your discovery plans. On the SF Tin, they're a good group too. We had a little bit of an issue with the previous owner. We went in and they actually didn't socialize very well with they're called Ayu Chupa. They didn't socialize with them, and they owed them some money from some previous work that they'd done in that pit that you saw. So we've had to go in and help them with rectifying past debts from the previous owner. They're grateful for that. We've come up with an environmental program around our drill program that they like. We've told them how many people we're going to hire as helpers. We offered to build them a clinic. They actually opted for a pasta manufacturing facility rather than a clinic because they're farmers, potato and wheat farmers, so they want to make their own pasta. And I haven't fully gotten that agreement signed yet. And I'm actually going down to Bolivia tomorrow, and I anticipate having that signed by the time I get back here, which is 28th of July. So that'll allow us to go into, we can go in now anyway, but we have the permits to go in, allow us to drill in August. But we've socialized well with the group, with both groups. We're helping both groups. They're very appreciative, but they're both areas are have very, very low unemployment. So it's important to manage their expectations so that they don't think that you're going to come in and just start operating a mine and you're going to hire 50 people from the beginning. We're an exploration team. We hire helpers for moving core boxes and for helping us with sampling and for cooking and moving people around. That requires 5, 6, maybe 8 people at the most. So you're not going to get. So you have to come in with a PowerPoint that says, "This is who we are. This is what we do. This is what we did at New Pacific. This is the rate of employment growth that happened there. We started out with 5 people, and in a year it was at 10, and next year it was 20, and that's what will happen to us as we grow the program. We'll start hiring more people, but you have to manage the local expectations."
For the third segment, we will listen to Peter Magal's thoughts on the potential of the Bolivian geology, and hear his, as well as Rhee's thoughts on the prospectivity of the prolific tin region where Tincorp's projects are located. As we all know, tin is a very small market, and it's that it only shows up in economical amounts in peculiar areas of the world. So could you tell us a bit about the forming and nature of tin mineralization? Could you just give us a bit of an overview?
Well, tin tends to occur associated with very highly evolved granitic intrusions or their volcanic or surficial equivalents. So highly evolved rhyolites, highly evolved granites, and the world's big tin belts are places like China, Malaysia, Cornwall in England, and probably the most prolific, Bolivia, where you have the Bolivia tin silver belt, where you have a number of very highly evolved intrusive systems that have evolved to the point where they concentrate tin in economic quantities.
And in terms of the Bolivian tin belts, of course, it's quite unique in the world, or it's completely unique in the world. Could you tell us a bit about the geology specific to the Bolivian tin belt and maybe a bit of history on Bolivian tin mining?
Well, Bolivian tin mining has probably been active since people really started to get interested in tin. I mean, tin was a major ingredient in bronze and things like that. So it featured in human antiquity but it became industrial really sort of from the middle 1800s on. In no small part, the development of the tin can, which was used to hold food, which was invented by Napoleon Bonaparte in the early 1800s and very dramatically shifted the demand for tin worldwide. Um, Bolivia obviously had been a major silver producer by that point, and a number of the silver mines in Bolivia were recognized as zoning into increased tin. The best example of that is Cerro Rico de Bolivia, which is or was the world's largest primary silver district until we made Fresnillo bigger than Cerro Rico. But the veins at Cerro Rico start as very high grade silver near the surface, and then as you go deeper, you get tan in them. In other parts of Bolivia, typically in western Bolivia and Oruro province, in that area, you have a lot of districts which are either slightly different geologically or eroded to a deeper level, so that most of the tin zone is gone, and what you see is the very high grade. Most of the silver zone is gone, and what you see is the high grade tin roots of the system. What we see at Silver Sand for New Pacific is a zoning from silver into tin, very similar to what you see at Cerro Rico. And the projects for Tincorp could both be down into the tin zone, but I'm not discarding the potential for tracking them upwards into high silver as well.
So, I mean, the tin mineralization shows up both in porphyry style, correct, and also like distributed bulk tonnage style, and also you have high grade veinlets and veins and stuff like that. Could you kind of explain? I mean, of course, we have SF, which seems to be more of a dispersed system, and then you have Porvenir, which is more high grade vein style mineralization. Could you give a bit of sense of what kind of grades one does see in Bolivia generally for these type?
Well, the grades can get spectacularly high in multiple tens of percent, depending on how selectively you can mine and whether you can mine essentially pure cassiterite, because many of the veins in the deposits in Bolivia are essentially massive cassiterite, which is the SNO2, which is the tin oxide mineral, which is the principal ore mineral of tin. So it's really just the difference is really a question of magmatic concentration processes. So you start with a very large body of highly evolved magma, and highly evolved just simply means it's already gone through a series of differentiation stages already to get it to the point where it's essentially pre-concentrated in elements like tin. And then how those fluids escape the intrusion essentially determines what the nature of the mineralization system will be. If you get a lot of sort of flapping in the peripheral part of the intrusion, a lot of microfracturing in the intrusion, the tin can dump out right in the intrusion, and it makes the tin porphyry kind of target that you mentioned. So you're going to be looking at well under 1% of tin in a situation like that, but dispersed in very large tonnages of rock. So analogous to a porphyry copper system or a porphyry gold, which many people simply use that terminology to express very large volume of low-grade mineralization. If, on the other hand, the fluids are allowed to concentrate and then get squirted out along fractures leading away from the intrusion, well, that will tend to give you the more vein style and higher grade, more concentrated mineralization. Less rock to move, much higher grade for your unit volume, but much harder to prove up an extremely large tonnage. So it's the classic playoff between large, low grade, and concentrated high grade, with, of course, all of the modern environmental components that come along with that. Large scale open pit mining is in many places less popular than more concentrated um, underground mining, just because the open pit has a bigger environmental footprint.
Just to give a sense of the tin prospectivity in the region local to San Florencio and Porvenir, could you tell us about the nearby tin mines, Honani and Yayagua? What type of grades and how do they mine the tin? What recoveries do they see there? Could you just let us know a bit more about those mines that exist nearby?
I think most of those mines, it could be huge, but it's huge. Like Yayawa, it would be one of the biggest tin mine in the world. They made a lot of richest people. One time they made a like one of the rich, not one, the richest person in the world is come from that mines in 1930s, and to make so much money is a big tin mines, and but then there's workers relationship and the government. I think in 1950, 55, the government took back the property from the private guys, and then ever since it's been mining by smaller miners like co-op. So this very mining more focused on narrow vein, high grade. It's like 1 to 2% teams, and like producing maybe a year, 15,000 tons of tin a year. But it's so big. If you go to the satellite, Google satellite image, you can see that there's a huge tailing, tin tailing piles, maybe estimated maybe over 50 million tons of tin tailings sitting there, right? And in the tailing, I was quoting some of the data from Commonwealth of Bolivia. Some of the tailing may have contained like those 50 million tons of tailing may contain like 0.5% tin. So it could be huge, but that's after they recover tin already is. And just say it's going to be big, but and then the tin price was like it's not good for a long time because there's a lot of cheap tin come from China. So nobody doing much tin explorations in Bolivia anymore. I think since 1950s, other than people digging small scale. They used to be the number one producer in Bolivia because the organization change and government change, and then nobody doing exploration. I think they're running out of mineral resource, and now China become the number one in terms of tin resource and reserve in the ground, where Bolivia has such a great potential, but nobody has drilled any holes, like since 90s for the tin in Bolivia. So that's give us a lot of opportunities, and also it's the right place to looking for tin.
Well, I mean, those are both very famous, historic, large-scale tin mines. They were most active from the late 1800s into probably mid 1900s. I'm not sure exactly when they closed down, but after the Second World War, the demand for tin dropped off dramatically. Um, Yayagua was big prior to and during the Second World War. Very high grade veins, very strongly structurally controlled, and these deposits tend to occur in clusters. So if you see one or two, the chances are that you'll see more than that. And all of that fits into Tincorp's exploration approach.
Now, for the final segment, we will take a close look at Tincorp's budget, as well as their short-term, as well as long-term strategy to drive value for shareholders. So let's get into the current kind of treasury and the costs that are associated with the business as of now. So you had a slide in the presentation that said 3.5 million Canadian. That was as of the last of March, and you're in the middle of a drill program now. How much funds remains, and what will you be able to achieve with this drill program?
So we're on Porvenir, so we're probably on hole 5 or 6 now. We're on hole 5. So we're again, one of the reasons we moved from Whitehorse to Bolivia is because my predecessor spent $567 a meter in Yukon. It's too much. That's off the charts. You can't spend that. You can't spend that kind of money. And I'm not blaming that on him. It was a certain set of circumstances that he inherited that drove the prices there. But in Bolivia, I'm spending $118 a meter. All in, that's just that's meterage and assay. All in with my expenses, it might be as high as 200, but that's all my costs in there. My salary, cars, trucks, the map behind me, etc. um, so with currently 3.5 was in March. You're right. I would have spent another $700,000. So I probably got 2.7 million in the treasury right now. I do have a payment for the Porvenir project in August, which is $750,000, which will take me down to $2 million, say in September, August, September, and I will be constantly drilling during that period. So I would say that we would be coming back to market for capital sometime in September, October. However, what I'm anticipating and what's been planned for is um, uh, I will have my assays from my first 3 holes by the middle end of August. And so I should be able to market now. Again, if the assays, I don't know what those assays look like. Now we have somewhat of an idea because when we're logging and what we see visually and what the XRF gun tells us, which isn't always that accurate, but we've gotten used to taking that XRF gun at New Pacific and formulating or calculating from the numbers what we should reasonably see, and we're getting pretty good at it. So what I guess I'm trying to say is I will have a 60-day window where I can take take the assays from the holes at Porvenir and take them to the market. Now, if they are what we hope they are, I anticipate being able to add value to the share price over that period of time, and then I would I would go to market after I knock on wood have been successful at elevating the share price and in effect reducing my cost of capital and reducing dilution for shareholders. I mean, that's the way you have to plan these things. I don't know that everybody does that, but that's the way we all should be thinking is add value, get the drill bit out, add value if you can. If it's not there, it's not there. You can't do anything about that. But if we're right, and my geologists are usually right, I should be able to come to market with a with some numbers that get some attention in the tin space. And there are some significant tin investors who are waiting to see what we come up with. And if they're good enough, I anticipate being able to move and again, these are very forward looking statements. But it's not that I don't have experience in doing this in the past. If we can add value with the numbers that come out of the ground, reduce our cost of capital, reduce the potential dilution, then we'll go back to the market later in the year.
And then, of course, I mean, a main point being here that almost half the outstanding shares are owned by insiders and Silvercorp, and I assume that all insiders and companies invested intend to participate in the financing.
Yes, so Silvercorp owns almost 30%. Marie has already told me that Silvercorp intends on maintaining that position. And I will maintain my position personally. And yeah, most of us will just write checks to maintain our positions. And because when you look at the insider level, there are 66 million shares out. When you look at the insider level, even though Silvercorp was 30%, but you look at myself and Ree and Victor and others, it's more like 45, almost 50% of the float is in insider hands, and we're not selling because if I believe my own words that we can add 10 times the value, 5 to 10 times the value from its current price, then why would I sell? I'm not going to sell. I'll wait until if I can get this thing, do the same thing I did with New Pacific, get it to a PEA where I'm an exploration CEO. I'm not an engineer. I don't build mines. I help to find them, and then I hand them off to the next person who actually is going to build them. So in 4 years' time, I'm assuming that we will, that I'll be able to have the drill bit and the resource itself will have added enough value that I can hand it off, take 5 to 10 times my money that I've got in, and say thank you very much, and have the shareholders turn to me once again and say thank you for your service. In fact, it was a really interesting handoff on New Pacific with a guy named Steve Calhoun from Fidelity, who was a very large shareholder of New Pacific. And when I announced that I was going to step down as CEO and hand the reins over to the new CEO or CEO, he turned to me and he said, I can only tell you this: you've done a fantastic job. He said you carried the water well. You did a great job carrying the water. He says, I wish you well because you've certainly done a great job for my investment. So hearing that from Fidelity and getting an email to that effect is part of the reason I do the job is to have shareholders to add value for shareholders, but to have them respond and say, "Wow, hell of a job, did a great job," and I hear that frequently, and I'm glad.
You're certainly the right man to raise in a tough market, that's for sure. A lot of contacts from your past career, and that's a very good asset for the company. So, in terms of the raise, how much do you think? I mean, this is obviously dependent on a lot of factors. How much do you think you will raise? What's the span that you're thinking, at least?
Now, it depends upon the price at the time, right? One of the things I'm running up against is I need to get I want to get those assays as quickly as I can, because the more runway I have to get them out to the marketplace, the more time I have for the market to digest the numbers. And again, I'm assuming these numbers are going to be noteworthy, so that the market goes, "Wow, okay, I need to own some of this." Um, uh, but I would say if looking at if we can get the price to a reasonable level, 60, 80 cents, it's at 30 cents now. I think if I can get the assays and double the price, which that's not too big a stretch. It's been at 50, 60 cents in the past. But with new numbers, I should be able to get it there. I'd say I'd probably do anywhere between a 6 to 8 to $10 million raise at the most. But I would say 6 to 8 million is what we'd be looking at 60, 80 cents is what I'm hoping. But again, I have to get numbers, I have to get marketing, and I have to get the response, which again, as I've done in the past, and I'm looking to do it again.
So let's just talk a bit about the budgets. You say you after this $750,000 payment you have for Porvenir, you will have $2 million left, right? Is that Canadian or US? That's Canadian, no?
That's Canadian.
Canadian. So you will have 2 million Canadian left, but of course you will be drilling continually during this time frame. So come September, what will be left in the treasury at that point?
Yeah, be a huge amount. It might be 750 to a million, but I'm again, I'm not overly concerned, and I'll tell you why. I have, if one of the reasons I took the job when Ree came back to me when I had left New Pacific, and he said, "I need you to come back and help me with Whitehorse," was because Ree Fing had Silvercorp as the chairman and CEO of Silvercorp. He has $200 million in cash, and he's a 30% shareholder. So I have somebody that will, and he owns himself 4% of the company. He himself can, they're invested, and he wants to see this a success. If I really need money or bridge or whatever in that period of time, I have access to it. So I'm not that is something shareholders should know too, right? And that would most likely be in the form of non-dilutive money. Now I'm hoping that I don't need that. I'm hoping that, and markets are tough right now, as you said, and even they are tough. But if I can get those numbers out and get things and get attention again, my caveat in the forward-looking statement is I don't know what the assays are going to tell me. And if they're not good, then I have to deal with that as well. But I haven't come up against that yet. But I would say that with $1,760,000 left, I have to raise money because in December I have another payment on the San Florencio property that's $1 million. So I need to raise that money between September and December.
In terms of the drilling, of course, with the current budget that you have, will all of the drilling meters be allocated to Porvenir, or will you do something for San Florencio as well before you raise? What do you think you will have time for? What's the plan there?
Yeah, so we have to drill San Florencio in August because we have to make a payment decision in December. So that, as I said, that factors into the $750,000 to $1 million that I'll have left in August, September, because I have to drill. I'm only using one drill because I have a limited treasury. I'm only using one drill, and I will move that drill from Porvenir we'll drill Porvenir through July, and then in August the plan is to move it to SF Tin, and then we will drill 2 to 3 to 4 holes at SF10, and then we'll get our assays. If we drill in August, we'll get our assays in October, November, and that will tell us whether we should move forward with the payment. And as I showed you on the slide with SF10, it's closer to the surface. There are less holes at SF10 than Porvenir, but I have a feeling that we have an advisor, Don Birick, who advised us with New Pacific and Silver Sand. He believes that the mineralized envelope is as extensive as that green dotted line I showed you between on our confirmation drilling. Rethinks that it is, it possibly extends, a couple of hundred meters or a couple of hundred meters at least, horizontally, I'll call it east-west. If that's the case and it's close to surface and you're drilling 250 meters of mineralization, then as long as that holds up along strike, right, from north to south, then I'm pretty sure as the main technical advisor to Tincorp, he'll advise the board to make the payment and to keep the property.
Yeah, so after the potential raise in September or the raise around there, you will raise somewhere between 6 to 10 million, let's say 6, let's just go a little lower, around 6 million. You will have to make the payment decision for San Florencio. That's a 1 million US. Okay. So that will leave you with 4.5 million Canadian in that scenario if you raise 6. And how do you think you will deploy? That's preliminary to say because you don't know the drill results from Porvenir and SF yet, but
yeah, these are early questions because I don't know, but what we're seeing at Porvenir in the core, and if it holds up, I would suspect that, and Ree is really the one who will drive the bus on this. Although we're going to send Peter McGaw down in August while we're doing SF10 to have a look at both sets of core, and he will have his own opinion, which he will discuss with Reed. But I don't think we do anything different than we did at New Pacific, which is take the $4.5 million and just put it in the ground. The best way for us to add value for shareholders is to continue to find the edges of the mineralization. What you're trying to do is to define the size of a deposit, and that requires drilling it, right? And you just have to keep drilling. And if you keep pulling good intercepts, good wide intercepts with good grade, you just keep going. And that's what we did at New Pacific. And excuse me, I'm not sure if that's what we'll wind up doing here because we have to drill. But we will take our capital and put it to good use, which is in my area of expertise is get it into the ground, get the results from the ground, and if the results from the ground are good, get it to market and get people to recognize the value. Keep pushing on the value side. The drills keep pushing into the ground, and I keep pushing into the markets and get people to recognize that tin is a vital, essential metal for the electronic and decarbonization growth of the world. And there's not very many deposits. And if we've got a good one, then it's got value and you need to own it. And we'll just keep pushing and pushing like we've done before in the ground and in the marketplace and get shareholders, of which I am one, value.
And just to get back to the budget for next year, what are the annual kind of G&A costs? Say like a burn rate cost if you don't drill. Could you just clarify that so people know?
So when we're not drilling, our burn rate was $150,000 a month. It wasn't exorbitant. We don't have a big staff. We're a small new company. I get paid. I think we only have 3 employees in Vancouver, and they're not all full-time employees. I'm the only full-time employee in Vancouver, and we have 2 other employees here. One is 70% and one's 50%. And then in Bolivia, I've got 4 geologists, cook, and a helper, and I got 5 helpers in the core shack, and I got a couple of drivers. So I mean, I've got 12 people maximum, right? So my burn rate is 150. That when I'm not drilling. When I am drilling, it's as I said, $200 a meter, and the holes we're drilling are about 300 to 400 meters long right now. We have one planned hole that's at 470. It was at 470, and we hit that. That was the second hole at Porvenir. So yeah, that's what's going to drive my costs while I'm drilling, right? So that's why you can go through, $500,000 a month as minimum just on the drill side.
And just clarify for everyone, what is the lab assay turnover time currently, and where are you sending these?
Yeah, what happens to us is we don't have there's not a full-on lab in Bolivia. There's a prep lab in Oruro, and Oruro, as I pointed out in the presentation, is 85 kilometers away from us. So it's an hour away from it's not that far. And then they prepare them in Oruro at ALS in Oruro, but then you have to truck them from Bolivia to Lima, because that's where we use the Lima lab, and that takes a day to drive them there. So, but what our turnaround times are right now at the lab in Lima is 30 days. So it's not that long, but I always give myself an extra 2 weeks just because even though the labs tell me it's 30 days, I never see them in 30 days. I always see them in 40 days or 45 days if they give me 30 days. So that's why. So to give myself
And then the cost is, of course, pretty competitive globally. In terms of the speed that you're able to drill, what's the monthly kind of meterage you can get out of the drill rig?
So our advance rate on the drill right now at Porvenir is about 70 meters a day. And so, a 350-meter hole is going to be 5 days, right? So it takes us 5 days to do 350 meters. So yeah, that's our advance rate. The rock's very competent. There's no clays there, so that doesn't get slowed down by that. So it's pretty good. It's pretty good drilling, actually.
I mean, so obviously China is the largest producer of tin globally, and you have spent your career in China, prospecting, developing, building mines, being very active. And as you say, the reserves are depleting and production is declining in China. And we've seen China, being active in Bolivia with the recent lithium deal. And so, where do you think the Chinese tin majors will look? I mean, obviously they have to probably look outside of China to replace the tin production. Do you think Bolivia could be a destination, or what's your take on that?
I like China. It's has some of the best tin recovery technology, but unfortunately, a lot of Chinese tin mine they are low grade and getting deep, getting very deep. I went to Yunnan province. That's where like a Yunnan Tin, which is a public company listed in Shanghai. They are largest tin mining company in the whole world. They produce about 150,000 tons of tin a year, and they produce out of that maybe 80,000 tons of tin come from their own mines. So I went to visit some of their mines. Their mines like 800 meter to 1,000 meter from surface already, and it's very hot and the narrow veins. Yeah, changing of labor force, and Chinese people are getting better life, and it's getting more expensive to hire Chinese people to go to 1,000 meter to mine narrow vein mine anymore. So that's the opportunity it present to miner in Bolivia, and them come to YAP, but that would be certainly very interesting. Some large scale potential open pitable team because they have the best technology, but they have no running out of resource. So they will be Bolivia will be a great could be a great opportunity for them to kind of uh, make up their depleted resource, right, with their technologies.
And from interacting with Yunnan Tin, do you think Bolivia they would feel comfortable investing in Bolivia if they have a great project?
Like a lithium big project, like Chinese company called CATL, they're going to invest 1.5 billion US, and also like a CITIC. There's a big conglomerate from China. They also got another project, second project. So all this just indicate to the Chinese government and Chinese investor that Bolivia may be friendly to China, right? Or to Chinese company.
Do you think the potential for any strategic um, events could take place in this time frame? I mean, we're seeing the big tin producers saying that okay, the production is declining, reserves are declining. They'll have to replace that somewhere, right?
Gorm, I know what your question is where your question is. I think that you're correct. I think that if we make 2 or 3 new discoveries, and in 3 years' time, we should have a resource on at least one of those projects in 3 years. If the resource is attractive enough, it should maybe attract somebody to come in and do some kind of a transaction. I've always been a proponent, though, of because I've been lucky to work with people that find good projects and have the ability to put them into production because they have that expertise and experience, I never look at going into these things as I'm going to build this so someone else will buy it. I always go in saying, I'm going to build this. We're going to add value to this. And and if nobody wants it, because there's a lot of people who build things or find things with the intention of saying that my neighbor next door who owns this and this is going to come and buy me. And I can tell you from my experience, that happens 20% of the time. The other 80%, it's either not worth it. They don't have the money. It's not the right timing. They can't do a deal, whatever it is. So I never go in thinking we're going to build these things so someone will buy it. I go in thinking we're going to build this thing. We already know we've determined that it's economic, and I've got a team behind me that can actually put this into production. The same thing happened with New Pacific. Here's the example. Pan American Silver at one time owned 17% of New Pacific, and everybody said, "Oh, it makes sense. Pan American's going to take you out." Blah blah blah. Well, that hasn't happened, and it's how many 7 years, almost 7 years later. And it's possible that could still happen or somebody could come along. But if you bank on that, then you're just sort of sitting around waiting for somebody to come in and take you out because you can't develop the asset. I don't have that problem. I've got Refang who can put almost anything on the planet into production. And I've got a team in this office here, because I'm in the offices with Silvercorp and New Pacific that are right now putting silver sand into production. So I always look at these things and say, yes, someone could come and buy it, but I can also add value because I have a team that can actually put it into production ourselves. So that's the way I look at these scenarios.
So this question is of course a tricky one, but I would just like to hear your reasoning and your internal thinking on this. Considering the potential grade, let's say 50 to 65% is a realistic range of recovery for tin, and a 90% payability, let's say. What kind of value per ton of rock and size of the resource, would you be happy to move forward in a bulk tonnage open pitable scenario, which San Florencio looks to be amenable for, and B, an underground scenario, respectively?
I think right now it's too early to give you a straightforward answer on that. Porvenir, it's certainly will be more like underground operations, but a higher grade, right? So if we are hoping we can get something like 1% tin and 2-3% zinc, and or higher 5% zinc situation. So that's what we are looking for, right? For the underground mining operation, you need I think you need $70 of rock to make that worth a little while, right? And with large quantities. So $70 US, based on current tin price, it's like 40,000 US, right? Yeah, 30,000 US. So 30,000 US, if you have 50% recovery, it's like you got a $15,000 US a ton, right? So you need if it's 0.5% tin times as 15,000, so that's almost 200, right? Well, each percentage is $150. So that's the 0.5% would be $75, right? So 0.5% tin is not going to be exciting underground mines, but that's what in China, that's what they're mining. And then you have a 3-4% zinc. So 3-4% zinc, like zinc right now is $2,000 a pound, right? It's like $2,000. It's like 4,000 US a ton. So 3% will be 3-4% would be like $100, right? After recovery, all those things. So you have $150, $170 rock. If it's a 0.5% tin and 2-3% zinc. But that'd be great for open pit mines. So Porvenir, if you like San Francisco, right? You have like a 1% zinc. So 1% zinc is 20 pounds of zinc. So I don't. So it's that's at a dollar. Right now it's what? It's $1 per pound, right? $1.20 per pound. So that's $20 rock. And then with your tin, 0.5% tin, you're talking about seven. So it's $100 rock almost for San Francisco. So San Francisco certainly looks more exciting. But Porvenir, what happens if you have a 1% tin at a 15,000 US a ton? So that's give you $1,550 US rock, right? With half the recovery plus zinc. So you may have over $200, $250 rock. So which is not bad. So that kind of economy you're looking at, right?
What would you say, are the main objectives in terms of advancing SF and Porvenir in the coming 12 months? Where do you want Tincorp to be at this time next year? What you want to have proven and defined and achieved?
I think I think this is just the beginning. So this is just one thing. We just got into team business in Bolivia, and then we're going to also looking around for other opportunity nearby, right? And because this is a good location and a lot of potential, but that's other than what we're going to drill for these two projects, we're also looking for new opportunities. But in terms of this, we're going to focus on once we got a community agreement on that San Francisco, we're going to focus on drill there, and because that's as I explained earlier, it's going to be a big open field world that's going to be exciting. So hopefully next year we will be able to define some initial mineral resource, right?
So when you and I speak this time next year, 12 months from now, what do you hope to have achieved at Tincorp?
Well, I hope in 12 months from now to have 20,000 meters of drilling in 12 months. That's on both projects, 10,000 meters on both projects in 12 months. I'm hoping that the I'm hoping that the intercepts at at SF10 are continue to be close to surface and give me 180, 250 meters of mineralization because the market will notice that. Grades, I can't tell you. I'd love to say my grade at SF10 is 0.5%, and my grade at Porvenir, I think that they will be there. It's more of a vein system, and the vein systems are not sporadic, but they're in different places. So I'm hoping that I can get. I believe the grades at Porvenir will be higher, but the intercepts will not be as wide as SF10. But when you if you get 50 meters of 1%, 1.5% tin out of Porvenir, which I'm I'm hoping we can see some of those numbers. If I've got some of those numbers at 50 meters of 1.5% tin out of Porvenir and 200 meters of 0.5, 0.4% tin out of SF out of SF10, though I think the market will recognize that we've what we want to do is have two new discoveries. That's mainly what I want to have in 12 months. But I'll have those, I think, in the next 6 months. But in 12 months from time, it will be two new discoveries, which will mean the fifth world discovery, new discovery in the last 40 years. That's what I want to be able to say. But I hope that my grades and my widths and my intervals are wide enough to get recognized by the market, and that we can do a good enough job at getting that recognition, so that in 12 months' time, um, we're trading at least three times what we're trading right now, at least three times. So I'd like to be at 90 cents to $1 in 12 months, at least. And that depends upon the numbers that I get, because if I've got good numbers, I know I am experienced enough to be able to get market recognition. And so in 12 months' time, I'd like to have 20,000 meters of drilling. I'd like to be at $1. I'd like to be, and I'd like to have 2 new major discoveries on
the kind of the bigger strategy and vision for Tincorp, let's say 3 years out from now, what kind of goals do you have in terms of driving shareholder value for exploration? Where would you like to be at that time frame?
Well, the tin space is a very small space, and we have some really good people involved in it. But for the company, in 3 years' time, I'd like to see just triple it, 60 to 100,000 meters of drilling. I'd like to see us with possibly 3 projects with 100,000 meters of drilling. I'd like to see share value at 10 times what it is today, at least in 3 years. At least 10 times what it is today, at least. I'd like to see my communities in Bolivia thriving and us being part of that.
I hope it will become another New Pacific. Yeah, so that's the idea, right? I think San Francisco will make it. I think people would be, if I would drill many holes in San Francisco, I think you can easily market both to Chinese companies. So that's the hope.